All right. If you just join, grab a seat, grab a seat. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming back after lunch. And this talk will be about CoorsTek's journey with Databricks Unity Catalog, mastering data security and compliance. So I'll hand over to our speakers. We have Dave and Anupam. Over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This session is after lunch, so one of the jobs apart from CoorsTek's journey with Unity Catalog is to keep it interesting. My name's Anupam Vahi. I'm the Chief Business Officer at Credence. We would spend next 40 minutes or so talk about CoorsTek's journey of why they wanted to go the route of doing Unity Catalog in the first place, or what were the challenges we faced, and what were the outcomes, what were the visions, what were the pivot points that we wanted to achieve with that. Obviously, there are learnings along the way which we want to share. And we also talk about a little bit of technology as to why we adopted one technology versus the other. So I'd let Dave introduce himself, and then we get right into the content. Towards the end, we have some time reserved for Q&A. So we would give you a chance to ask questions, if any.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. I am the real Dave Tomlinson. We have the AI David Tomlinson up here. My team hates this photo. It looks scary to them, which admittedly, most of the time, I have a smile on my face. So unless, my 4 or 6-year-old is misbehaving. So I'm the Director of Data and Analytics at CoorsTek. CoorsTek is a 115-year-old company headquartered out of Golden, Colorado. And no matter how many times I tell my family that I don't drive a forklift at the Coors Brewery, they still don't believe me. But that is okay. We're a technical ceramics company. We've been around for a really long time. A challenge for us with data security is the fact that we actually work with the government and the Department of Defense. So there's some additional compliance things that we have to make sure that we're aware of and that we adhere to as we embark on our journey to the cloud. That may sound surprising, but as a super old manufacturing company, we don't have much of a cloud presence. At least we didn't when I came in a couple of years ago or a year ago to CoorsTek. So on this vision, or on this journey, we really decided, hey, it's time for us to really make some hard decisions, set some good foundations, and continue to grow our framework of what we need to do to provide better analytics and better business value for our customers, our internal customers. So when we started looking at where we were and what we were doing, we pretty much identified right away that we were interested in migrating to Unity Catalog. We had the historical Hive Metastore in place, and really we were using Databricks as only a transformation layer within our data flow. So we had more of an Azure native solution. We really decided to go with more of a centralized strategy on Databricks and make sure that we are getting all the functionality and all the benefit from the functionality that's out in Databricks today. Another part of this is we had actually created at one point in time at CoorsTek a physically isolated environment where some of our data existed in one area and was transformed in one specific way, and our data then was in other non-regulated areas also managed. Well, this became a huge challenge for us because then you're doing everything at least twice, right? So we're trying to figure out, okay, is this information ITAR compliant, CUR compliant? Who can see it, who couldn't, and really had a very, very physical isolation strategy for that. Because honestly, there wasn't a better solution that existed out in Azure Data Factory and with Azure at that point in time. So for us, that was important to make sure that we were engaging with the community and really understanding what we could do to simplify our strategy and our framework within Unity Catalog. Additionally, there's some things that the business didn't have when we were looking at compliance, and that was the lack of visibility, as it says above here. And okay, it's one thing to say, here are the access groups and here are the people in those groups. It's completely different to tell people, this is how they're using it, here's how they're accessing it, here's how they're trying to query that information and return results. And that for us was a really big win and something that we wanted to make sure that we did for our security and our compliance teams. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to look at, okay, how can we encrypt our data? How can we make sure that we can have masking functionality? We're a small company. We need to do a lot with a few people, right? So we didn't have a team of 10 even. Today I have a team underneath me of 5. So we have to make it work with a little amount of people. And so anything we could do to simplify what we were doing and being able to help us come up with other options and what we were looking at and how we can support the environment, we once again started leaning towards Databricks and Unity Catalog, because for us, that was the way that we were going to create some level of optionality, as it says up here, or really making sure that we were avoiding some of our Azure lock-in, right? We were really looking at what we were doing with our Azure native solution, and we said, that is everything and anything in Microsoft Shop, and they have full control over what we were going to do and the direction we were going to go. And that is something that can be a little scary if you're a small company and a small team, because if they change strategy, all of a sudden you're changing strategy and you're reworking things that you don't necessarily need to rework. Additionally, when we were looking at our strategy before I came into CoorsTek, we really had a very specific, we're going to land all of our data in a SQL managed instance, and we were going to use Databricks to just do this light ETL work. But really our data warehouse was going to be just simply a SQL server in the cloud. And that really seemed like we were missing out on a huge opportunity.
Right.
And we wanted to reset, and we wanted to make sure, hey, if we're using Unity Catalog and Databricks, we want a SQL warehouse that we can rely upon. We want to use the ML features with MLflow that are built in. And we really want to lean into that Gen AI environment as well, especially with AI, BI, and the Genie workspaces. Those were big for us, and we really needed to lean that direction and kind of reset where we were going. And so for us, it was obvious that we needed to go through Unity Catalog migration. So many of you probably are familiar with this slide, and hopefully many of you are familiar already with Unity Catalog. If not, then you had a bowl over your head, or you're an ostrich with your head in the ground. But this is really what you get with Unity Catalog at the very basic level, right? And we were looking at, okay, we don't have a lot of extra people. So every single time we set up a workspace, or every single time that we're trying to align and assign a compute, there was significant work that had to be done. And so we were like, well, that's not going to scale at all with the amount of people that we have, especially considering that with those 5 people, we also have to support all of our legacy environment as SQL Server as well. So how do we go through and how do we really help eliminate some of the duplicity in the environment and really help us do something that is simple and easy to understand and allows us to have a better control over things. For us, we did go with a medallion structure, obviously, as well with this. And we went with a human intelligible naming convention when we were doing that instead of bronze, silver, and gold, which a lot of our business users we knew weren't going to understand. What does it mean to be bronze or silver? So we decided with naming conventions that matched their interpretation. Core, this is the core raw data, cleansed, and analysis. So that really helps them understand as they're exploring and trying to discover new assets using Unity Catalog, that they can actually see and understand what they're looking at. So these are some real life screen grabs of our environment and the lineage. Many of you may be familiar with this lineage, these lineage views now. But what you can do is you can now understand, and people can now visually see how the data is related to each other. That was a huge point for us when we were talking with our security counterparts and with our global trade team who helps us control our ITAR compliance. That was really important for them to go through and see where the data is going, understand the relationships between data, and certify if someone's created an alternate view of something, because of course these lineage graphs aren't manually populated, right? They're automatically populated based on how you're engaging with the platform. So you can go out there and you can see, oh, well, you know, in this case we can see M Hill and M Graph. And I think Ian's name is probably in there somewhere, just further back in the lineage. But it allows people to see how everything is connected and how it's being used. And that was huge for us in terms of that compliance certification, because now they can say who's accessing it, who's using it. The history list table on the far right-hand side here, that also gives you a view of how people are using the data and what queries are running against it. Now you'll see most of these are merge statements and some basic data engineering tasks were being done by my team as we're building out and developing this platform, but it shows you any user interaction or query, and that would even include if you had a direct connection to something like Power BI and people are running reports, it will actually show here as well that they're out there and they're viewing the reports, they're querying against the data. So these were important views for us to understand how it was being used, what it was being used for, and making sure that we can certify that the correct people have the right access to data, which of course is the main reason that we have all the compliance controls that we have today. So here we have some really high-level examples of some of the things that you can also do with Unity Catalog, especially when we're talking about masking and obfuscation and scrambling. These are different types of engagements and different types of masking algorithms, if you will, that you can use. And there's even more of this functionality that's available out there today in Unity Catalog with functions and being able to align those functions even with specific tags so that you can make sure as your data comes in that it's viewable by the right people. And so for our HR teams who are putting PII information out there, that's important for them to understand. How do I make sure, and how can you certify that people can't see the data that we're producing, or can only see to a certain level of the data?
Thank you, Dave. So at this point, right, we come in and we kind of try and figure out some of the challenges that Dave outlined. We wanted to bring in technology to do this job as much as possible. We had a lean team, like Dave mentioned. We also saw that, across the industries where we've seen clients coming up now, where we're talking about data sharing and we're talking about things going on cloud, and especially with Databricks being implemented at scale, compliances and clients' questions around how do we govern the data, how do we manage the data, how do we ensure that it is visible to the personas that are only supposed to see it and not others, and so on and so forth. A lot of those questions are being answered by the Unity Catalog that we wanted to bring in. And those were the technological reasons where we wanted to provide that kind of benefit to CoorsTek. But the question was that we had to implement this in a way that we were not heavy with the team structure. We had limited team structure, and we also wanted to do it in the right way, architecturally designed in a way that we leverage all capabilities, functionalities. And usually every client situation has a different tech stack. So you need to align your migration strategies, your target architectures, and so on and so forth with the tech stack that an individual enterprise is running. And that's what happened, right? CoorsTek had a tech stack, CoorsTek had a strategy. So like I always say, right, in these kind of migrations and these kind of implementations, before we get into the job, the prep that goes in to kind of pay attention to the nitty-gritties of how architecturally we are going to implement this, which business groups we are going to affect, bring on the business users and bring them on and kind of have them get a view of what will change for them, and in regard to that, what benefit they would achieve out of that, right? So that we have their back as we implement this. Yeah. So a lot of stuff went around. Core logic was ability to give the security, compliance, masking, scrambling features, which allows us to kind of manage the data from a compliance and governance standpoint. Now, when we come in, at this point, I also want to introduce a little bit of what Tredence does, right? Tredence has been a core integral part of Databricks' journey of the last 5-6 years, particularly in the last 5 years, we've been their partner of the year and so on and so forth consecutively for last 5 years. The reason why we come in and alongside Databricks and do these kind of implementations is exactly where our accelerators come in, right? And what these accelerators are, these are functional blocks that we've built, which kind of help us accelerate these implementations, not by just putting more manpower and more capacity from a perspective of resources, but we bring in these abilities which are predefined accelerators, which have their UI and interfaces and so on and so forth. And these accelerators are built on Databricks natively and are designed in a way that it can work in many different tech environments, right? So CoorsTek has one environment, and we decided to bring our accelerator in the mix, which we call Unity Go. And once that accelerator comes in, you will see that on the next slide we have a small demo. Architecturally, it fits into the schema of how CoorsTek had designed the thought process to do or implement Unity Catalog. So we brought that in, and one of the things that Unity Go does is, a lot of migration that were designed to be done, we had those schemas, we had those pre-built schemas and migration capabilities that we need. So we didn't have to go and do those migrations manually, and we could bring in Unity Go to accelerate a lot of stuff that was needed to be done.
I remember when we were putting in the Unity catalog,
Right.
the Unity Go application, we actually had challenges that we had to work through together.
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
Because when we built our Azure environment many moons ago,
Right.
we actually put a lot of really strict network restrictions in place.
Right.
And so that actually ended up causing a lot of pain initially for our teams. But it was awesome to work with you and your team and to overcome those challenges and to get the solution deployed so that we could use it for the migration.
Yep.
A lot of companies have really, really big Databricks workspaces,
Yep.
and I can see where this application would significantly accelerate
Absolutely.
how that comes together. And for us, it was like, okay, there was that initial hurdle of our network restrictions and getting past that and getting things deployed in the environment. But once we did, it was like snap, snap, snap. Okay, this is the new environment. We
Yep.
transitioned over to the new catalogs. And it was incredible to work with the team to overcome those initial steps, because it was a worry of ours as CoorsTek has experienced multiple partners in multiple different areas in the cloud where we struggled. And you guys came in and you were dedicated to helping us overcome those challenges and get the solution in place.
And not to forget that we were an organization where we wanted to do everything on site, so we could not bring in a lot of resource efficiencies by taking them offshore. So we brought a lot of resources, but thanks to Unity Go, we did not need those many resources
exactly.
in that migration. So to the point, right, what does it look like? This is how it looks like. This is the demo screen. So the point that Dave was talking about, right, the hurdles and challenges that we have. See, these are accelerators which are developed as generic accelerators to be deployed in any environment. And that's what I was trying to say, that different enterprises have different tech stack, different regulations, how you add these applications when we go into migration. So there are teething issues that happen in the beginning. But once we are in and these accelerators are there and we understand what is our target architecture, which is from to picture, and then just, it's a click, 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 and like he said, right, we're in there. So this is where Tredence comes in, and this is one of 170 accelerators that we have. So I don't intend to present 170 accelerators, but across the life cycle of data engineering, data science, and so on and so forth, alongside Databricks, we've built these accelerators for different situations, different clients. Unity Go happens to be one of them, which was applied here. Going forward, when we get into different challenges, we can obviously bring in different set of accelerators. And the beauty is that these accelerators can solve point problem, which in this case was Unity Go. But if it's a complex problem, we could bring 5 different accelerators and connect them together to solve a larger problem as well, right? These are just pre-written codes that can be applied on any situation.
Yeah, and before we move on here, the other thing that was a challenge for us as we went through and we deployed this application, we got it running in our environment, is that in my Azure environment, I can't allow anyone in that's not a US citizen or US persons. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of, we needed to click the buttons. And so we were able to work with a sellable team with some of their folks, but also we were able to do screen sharing sessions where they were able to walk us through, okay, what buttons do we need to click? And with the one cloud engineer that we have at our company, he was able to sit down and work with the team to get this application deployed. And we were able to use it. But that was another one of the challenges that we had to overcome with my security model was you just can't.
No.
You can't send a bunch of people on site, or they can't have access to be able to provide additional access. So that's something that we had to also contend with as we were going on this journey.
It is a regulated environment with a skinny team, so we had to do what we had to do. But I think the point that Dave is making is that it's time where technology is coming in and doing things more for us. And we have teething problems adopting any new technology. We have our own jitters, but once we overcome that, I think technology plays and really helps us drive things and accelerate things faster for us. So finally, what outcomes and so on and so forth. So we obviously reduced, right, the time it takes to create the bronze, silver in the new nomenclature that you guys decided. And this was also about governance. Remember, we spoke about that. And once this came in, we could reduce the violations by 90%, which is the beauty of how technology came together in the architecture in the manner that we wanted it to come.
Yeah, and that 90% really comes from us being able to certify very easily and quickly what different workspaces are binded to what catalogs, and how do we make sure that the different access models that we have are being applied to the data sets correctly. Historically, we would have to go into our analysis services model and we would have to do a browse as a person, and then we would have to certify what entities or what assets they have access to. And that's a very laborious process, but with Unity Catalog, it's quick and easy to see what workspaces are bound to what catalogs, and making sure that people are using it and being able to see what they're supposed to see.
Absolutely, and architecturally also, right, one of the things was that can we drive or simplify the architecture. So there were redundant tasks that we could get rid of. So 20% kind of saving from those redundant tasks getting optimized. But from a governance and transparency standpoint, Dave, would you want to comment more how organizationally this helped you guys from your management perspective, what they wanted to achieve and where did we end up eventually?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, once again, as I said, we were on this cloud journey, and really we had faltered over this cloud journey and for many years, and we had actually reset our architecture in Azure 3 separate times over 5 years. So when we came in and we said, hey, we need to go for a more centralized strategy and reduce the complexity in platforms, we identified things that were easy to use, easy for people to understand, and easy to certify when it came to our compliances. So when we sat down with our security team, we started talking them through, okay, this is what we're looking at, this is what we're gonna do, this is what we wanna see, you know, what gaps do you guys have? They took it away for a couple of weeks, and we were surprised. They came back and they were like, no, this all looks good, and they gave us the thumbs up, and we were able to be CUI and ITAR authorized with our global trade team, which was, once again, one of the huge steps forward. But for them, as we continue to move our environment into user access reviews and other things, they're looking at what we're doing and saying, how can we apply that more consistently across the board? So as we look at our SAP environments, or if we look at our iPaaS solutions and what data is going between applications, they're thinking about it in a similar way. How can we leverage, you know, the foundations that we've built here so that there's transparency and there's consistency? And that was one of the big things that they were expecting from us.
Right.
Oh, one last thing on that slide is when we look at our time to market was very lengthy. We were looking at a metadata-driven Azure Data Factory pipeline framework, which is word salad, but hopefully someone in here understands what I'm saying. It's very complex, and it took a long time to onboard new connections. So we were working with a partner that was recommending a solution that really didn't have a lot of flexibility, and it took forever for us to get new data in. So it was like, okay, we want to turn data around in a week, and they're like, a week, that's kind of a short time frame. It's more like a month.
Right.
We're like, a month to bring in new data? Like, that is crazy. And that was for new connections, not necessarily new tables, right? But as we continue to expand what we want to do in the cloud, waiting a month for a new data source coming in was not going to help us provide the business value that we needed to. So having Unity Catalog and their federated data connections really helped us accelerate that time for exploratory data analysis, and also looking at and bringing data into the environment so that people can see it and they can use it. And that was one of the huge things that we got out of this as well is, I challenged my team to say, what if we only had 48 hours to turn new data around in Databricks?
Yep.
And we can do that now. Yep. We can do that, and at times it's even faster than that, as the team has developed some IAC controls of workspaces and creating new workspaces. They've also kind of figured out the easiest path to create new UC federated connections, and being able to do that, bring that data in quickly and easily for people to access. So that was another huge benefit of it as well.
Data onboarding, and also becoming near real time. I wouldn't say real time yet, but the ability to give that data back to the users and onboard the data, that was another functionality. So accelerating the implementation was one, but one of the big benefits we draw out of this new architecture was ability to get near real time. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and then we also were using Fivetran as well to do a small pitch for them. We use Fivetran because of the drag and drop and simplicity of their environment. We go with their hybrid environment, so what we can have is we have more control over the data and how it moves and how people access it, how that platform uses it, just to make sure that once again we're maintaining that compliance for the teams. They want to know what systems are touching the data, what is it doing, what level of data is it seeing, how does it interpret a change data capture product. And so when we looked at resetting and reusing in the environment, it was, Fivetran is easy, and Databricks was easy. Unity Catalog is a great product. Once you make the migration and you're using it every day, you really do have a lot of functionality and features that come along with with the migration with the platform.
Absolutely.
So here, things to remember when we're looking at an initiative like this is for me, our company really had lost focus of working on technology for technology's sake, and not looking at how we're trying to solve a business problem with the technology that we have or the technology that we're trying to evolve to. So our recommendation is to always talk about and think about what value are you delivering for the company, and how does that help them make better decisions, and how does that help you set foundations so that you can continue on the Databricks journey or on your cloud journey. So start with high risk or high value data sets is the important message there. If there's something really risky, get that moved over sooner rather than later. Focus on what the business needs from you as opposed to how you're going to use your technology or playing around with the newest things. It's good to experiment and sandbox, but you also need to stay focused on the fact that we're here, usually, at least in my case, I work in the IT department. We're not adding value, if you will, like through the manufacturing process. So how do we really help accelerate their efficiency and their focus on what they need to do from a business unit perspective? And also, don't wait for it to be perfect, right? Perfect is the enemy of great. You need to make sure that we're not spending too much time on, okay, what every single role can we have, what kind of attribute control can we put in place? You need to start small. You need to build something that people can understand and that you can articulate, and then continue to iterate through that and continue to build upon the momentum that you gain. You got to get that ball rolling down the hill, though, to start with. You can't wait too long to say, well, it's coming. That was another historical challenge we had at CoorsTek, is we were building this very monolithic thing, and it was, well, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Well, it was 3 years, and the business user had never seen anything from that platform. So we decided to say, okay, how do we evangelize the hub and spoke model? Especially with that ability to bind catalogs and to share catalogs across workspaces. That's going to be a great way for people to start getting involved and contributing to the overall vision. So also, the sense of FOMO is real. People will very much get in contact with you and work with you if they hear someone else is getting to do it. So the fear of missing out is real. We leverage that on a regular basis, and not in a manipulative way, but in a psychological way that we're saying, hey, people who are engaged and excited, they are going to be involved in doing more in the platform. And if you don't have a technical skill set, then we need to talk about what kind of upskilling do you need to do and want to do. And we need to empower those different users as well so that they can go through and they can understand what their role is with the environments.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as I said, right, planning was essential for the success of the program, and some of the things that we took care when we were doing the planning from this initiative. And once we completed the program, right, some of the practical advices and the lessons that we learned along the journey, would like to highlight some of those, right? So medallion architecture, obviously, like Dave said, right, make it human intelligence, right? And that's where working closely with the business user groups, the governance teams, the security teams, and figuring out that the architecture is fine, but what is it going to change for the user? How is this architecture going to bring new challenges in adoption of the new ways and methods, and how would the process change. Like I said, we can't change the manufacturing process, but we can help them accelerate some of those stuff. So that's one. Second was Unity Catalog. It's not a compliance tool, right? It's basically a pivot point from where you can do many different things. Once you have sorted out your architecture, once you've built the data pipes, and Unity Catalog has given you the ability to manage the data and govern the data with the security compliances that your management puts as challenge to you, you can do many different things. So it's kind of it's not an end game for us. It was a game where it's an entry point to a new world. So it's a pivot point, I would say. So many clients look at Unity Catalog and say, hey, that's my end goal. I think that's not it. It's just the beginning of your ability to do many different things for your organization with data, because you get more control and governance on the data, actually. So that's what Unity Catalog is all about. So it's basically about ability to scale, right? And then the Unity Catalog's foundation for, I think I covered most of the part. I think the tooling and the toolkits, Fivetran or Unity Go coming in, and so on and so forth, have a lot of packed features. How you bring them together and what features you would want to leverage, simply put, for the end user. And I think that's an art, and that's the technology team that kind of looked at everything that they had in terms of features and capabilities that platform had. What was needed for CoorsTek was adopted. So toolkits do help you, but eventually it is how you leverage those toolkits and features. So rather than trying to leverage everything, you kind of figure out what capabilities are matching with your business needs and so on and so forth. And finally, use governance for unlocking the broader data access. I think we talked about a lot. Dave, is there anything you would like to add here?
Yeah, I think it's important also to really leverage your partnerships. That's something we didn't
Right.
really talk about, right? Too much is how do you leverage the people that are around you? I have my account executive, Adam, that's in here in the room with us, and I have Matt, the director of our SSA team. And it's great to have them here for the solutions architect and the sales enablement part of it, to really lean into that and say, okay, Databricks, how can you guys help us scale? How can you guys help us do more? And challenge them, right? The company, if you guys didn't know this, right? It's based on your success. Their success is our success. So the more that you can work with them to say, hey, these are the challenges I need to overcome to drive usage, right? They're gonna be engaged more because they want to, admittedly, they want to get paid. The company wants to make revenue, right? So how do we leverage that part of the partnership to say, these are the things we want to do. It drives usage. It's good for you guys. It's mutually beneficial for us to focus on that. That is an important part of it. And then, of course, looking at the different partnerships that you can form, like ours, to help us make those migrations and help us get to where we need to go. Those are important. So find a partner or a set of partners that you're working with that can really help drive the value. That is certainly part of the journey. And you should challenge yourself to understand who's out there in the marketplace and what they can do for you, because there's lots of good partners that have lots of good tools, like we were talking about with Unity Go and with Trident. So that's another important part of the journey is leveraging the partnerships that are out there and making sure you're clear on your goals and what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. And the last thing on this slide before we move to Q&A is, look, I mean, like I said, right, world is changing pretty fast. Technology is coming in and giving us the ability to do things faster. Each day I see, right, there is new technology evolution that is happening. So technology will be there. Technology will evolve fast. The question is, how do we tap into the technology and we kind of build or leverage the technology to do things for us now compared to just kind of putting more and more resources at it, right? That's where Trident comes in, and we kind of partner with clients. And thankfully with Dave, he gave us the opportunity to do that. And we did what we did. I think it was a program that was that had a timeline and that had limitations of resources. It had limitations of what we could do, what kind of people could come in, and so on and so forth. What is the location of those people who touch anything that is production? So we had those complexities, but as I said, right, because we were leveraging more technology, less people, we were able to kind of do things faster and aligned with what was needed to be done. So thank you, Dave, for partnering with us on this one. But questions, happy to take questions and if there are any.